Welcome to Liberty FM, the podcast dedicated to all things New York Liberty. I'm Felicia, and I'm joined by my co-host, Francois. We're looking back at Tuesday night's game where the Liberty faced off against the Dallas Wings. Even with the absence of Sabrina Ionescu, the Liberty remained in control and won this game by a score of 94-74. Francois, what do we think about the poise and resilience shown by the Liberty?
I mean, it's impressive. I mean, every week now we're getting more and more hopeful as Liberty fans because what they've been showing so far, and especially since we came back from the Olympic break, I mean, they're playing like a championship team. Like you said, Sabrina, it was a game time decision. She felt some discomfort on the neck. Sandy said before the game that she sustained the injury during the Aces. So it was a big loss, to not have Sabrina. And then also during the game, we lost Leonie Fibish, who had a rib injury. I think it was when Natasha Howard set a screen and she hit her in the rib. And I think she kind of came back in the third quarter briefly. And then after that, it was too much. So you had those two players injured. Benaja has been out for a little while. And despite that, the Liberty still show up and show out and beats the Dallas Wings. It was the first time we were facing them, but the resiliency of that team, we're starting to really have a lot of hope for that team. What did you make of the performance overall?
I thought it was a fantastic performance by all the players. Everyone got to play last night, which was amazing. Everyone got minutes, which I really appreciated for this Liberty team. I think that you had 3 players in double-doubles who reached double-double status last night, which I think was historic for this team, for this season. And to just have everyone play with such poise and determination, and just to see them go out there with the mentality of like, look, we got a couple men down, next man up. You got to go. You got to give it your all. And you can tell that everyone on that court was giving it their all. They didn't want to drop this game just because, Sabrina's out, Benaja's out, then Leo went out. And, you could have easily given up. You could have easily said, let's not push it. We got another game Thursday. But that's not this team. And you just see that resiliency. You see that they want to win every single game. It doesn't matter the team. It doesn't matter, where they're at in the standings. This team has just shown that they are together. And that's the one thing you see is that even with the next man up, even if they're not getting as many minutes as you would like, they're still giving it their all, and they're still pushing to really get these ladies and to get this team over the hump, which would be a championship.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, you want to see that from a team, that confidence and that poise. But I do also feel like they're pretty humble too, because I had a chance to, see them in the warm-up before the game and also the press conference. And, when they were asked about, what they need to do to continue with that momentum, I really felt like, most of the players said that we haven't achieved anything just yet. And they still feel like, there's still a lot of room for improvement. So I like, that they're confident, but at the same time, they don't feel complacent and like, we're top of the league. We have this 7-game winning streak. We beat the Aces, we beat comfortably the Dallas Wings and the LA Sparks. They still haven't achieved anything. You could, win all those games and then lose in the first round, and then it's like, thank you and go home. Yeah. So I like the fact that they're still hungry. They still feel like, okay, this is not it. Stewie, I think it's good to have a leader like that because she will always remind the team that, we got to keep going. We got to keep improving. And when you have leaders like this, like Jonquel Jones, who's not necessarily a vocal leader, but she's a leader on the court, and then Breanna Stewart as well, it really helps. And, I was really curious about this matchup against the Dallas Wings. It was the first time that they were facing that team this season. And I know last year we won. We had 2 wins and 1 loss against them in the regular season. And they were a tough team to play against last year. I know this year they had a lot of injuries and they try to figure things out. But I was very curious because I remember the loss that the Liberty had against Dallas at home last year. That what was very striking is how much they dominated the boards. They have really tall players on their team, and they kept having second chances after second chances. So I was really curious how the Liberty were gonna deal with that, and they did so well. And I think it starts with Jonquel Jones and Breonna Stewart. The way they switch on defense, they can sort of cover pick and rolls and switch, and you have someone else after that coming as well. You have someone like Phoebish that could also cover bigs. And so I was really impressed how they defended Dallas bigs. And then you saw how many rebounds they got. I mean, they lost the battle of that loss last year. I think it was 40 rebounds to 36 in that loss last year. But this game, they had 47 rebounds versus 28 for Dallas. And I think it's been the third game in a row now that the Liberty have at least 45 rebounds. And I think it's a team high, a new season high, 47 rebounds in this season. So what did you make of Jonquel and Breonna Stewart? That tandem that has been working really well this year, whether it's defensively or offensively.
Well, they have the length, and getting to the basket for them, and battling even with the bigs of the Dallas Wings. Each player got 12 rebounds, but also everyone on the Liberty got a rebound.
Yeah.
Everyone on the Liberty got rebounds, with the exception of the two rookies, and Sherrod and Davis. So everyone got a touch.
Yeah.
Stewie and JJ got the most out of there, which one would expect, but you got to give it up. They were battling, and they wanted to make sure that they had control and that they kept control through the game. Yes, this is a game of runs, and each team had their own run, but when the Liberty went on a run, it was a much bigger run. They took control and they weren't trying to let it go. And so you just saw that everyone really stepped up. And for JJ and Stewie, I think they also took this on themselves, with someone like Sabrina being out, one of your starters, and then Leo going out. That's a huge blow, you would think, because Leo also provides the length. She provides that defense and also rebounding. And she's quick. And, with her out, you were wondering, okay, what are they going to do? Because you don't see Dojkic as much. You may not see Kennedy Burke as much, and sometimes, most of the time someone's subbing in for Sloot. But all these players had to play longer minutes, and they did well with the minutes that were given to them, and they all did a really, really great job. So, it wasn't just Stewie and JJ. Everyone got to contribute. And that's the one thing about this team that, people are starting to talk about, is that they share the ball really well. Offensively or defensively, everyone gets a touch at some point. And it's really great because for any team, there's not just one main person that you have to attack. You literally have to look at the whole team, because you'll never know who's going to come at you next.
Yeah.
And that's really great for the Liberty. I'm glad they're developing into this just powerful team, and they're starting to peak. They keep saying that, I feel like we're starting to peak. They haven't fully reached it yet. So I hope that they keep this climb going all the way to the championship.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, the roster is pretty unique this year, compared to last year, because like you said, like, you have people that can step up. I mean, Arike Ogunbowale, she had 17 points, but I felt like it was a very quiet 17 points.
And it was hard for her to get those points because she didn't do well in the first half.
Because you had someone like Phoebish on defense against her, who's, her wingspan and, her lateral movement on defense is pretty good.
Caleb Thornton as well.
Yeah, Caleb Thornton, and then if it's not Phoebish or Thornton, then you can put Kennedy Burke as well. We didn't have those players, I mean, except with the exception of Caleb Thornton, we didn't have those players last year. And I remember that Arike would go on the tear every single time against us, and it was really hard to stop her. Sabrina wasn't as good defensively. You had Marin Johannes, who's, very good offensively, but, maybe struggle a little bit more against players like, Chelsea Gray or Ricky Ogunbowale. And now you have those versatile players that, that can offer you that solution on defense. So I felt like they kind of let like Sabali kind of, do her own thing and cook. I refer to Satu Sabali, not Nira Sabali. But then I felt like they locked, Natasha over at only 13 points, with not necessarily a great field goal percentage. Chera McCowan only had 2 points. And then Calanie Brown, who's also the sub for Chera McCowan, only had 7 points. They didn't really dominate the board. So I felt like, they kind of picked the poison. It's like, we're okay if Satu is cooking if we kind of lock down the other players, and I think they did a great job.
Yeah, and they also got, with McCowan and Brown for the Dallas Wings, they also got into foul trouble.
Yeah.
And, I think the Liberty realized that very early on, and they kept attacking. Because, yes, if you can... Enrique is gonna get shots off.
Yeah, I mean, point. She still had a couple of great shots. But...
She had a lot. She still had a few great shots, and if you can limit her somewhat, that you're not gonna completely shut her down.
No.
And so, if you can limit her, that's a success. And Satu, coming off of the Olympics was really her chance to sort of get back into the game and get back into the flow of things coming from injury. So, she's still also, I feel like she did well, but
yeah, you could
she's
tell,
not the Satu of last year.
Yeah, you can tell physically she's not completely there yet.
She's not completely there
Which is good for us, I would say. But...
it's good for us right now. I think next year it will be a different scenario if everyone stays healthy. We'll definitely see a different Satu. But yeah, for Enrique, if you keep her locked down somewhat, but they attack the bigs, and I think that was a great game plan, whether or not that was a scripted game plan or not, by them getting into foul trouble and you kept attacking them, that keeps them a bit hesitant, especially around the basket. You need your bigs, especially with JJ and Stewie, kind of all over the place. And with JJ coming into the paint, she's a force to be reckoned with, and you need a big to really try to contain JJ. And if you don't, it's pretty much lights out for the other team. Because I don't think anyone else, even Natasha Howard tried to do it, and she took a shot from JJ, which was a flop. I know she tried to say it was a foul,
we
but
have the video to prove it.
We saw that video. It was a flop. But again, JJ is strong and powerful in the paint, and really it was just your bigs that could sort of contain her. So yeah, I think the Liberty executed a great game plan.
Yeah, and talking about executing, my next one is Courtney Vandersloot.
Sloot! Sorry, my voice cracked.
Yeah, your voice cracked. Now we got the audio to prove it. But the general, I mean, she had to step up in Sabrina's absence and kind of be the floor general that she's done all her career. And she stepped up big time. I mean, I know that, it's been a roller coaster of emotions, when it comes to fans and the relationship with Vandersloot. But it was great to see her out there. And, she said after the game that, it was good for her to sort of get back into that role because let's not forget that she had to adapt to a completely new role joining the Liberty where, she would be sometimes off the ball because, she kind of had to share the point guard duties with Sab, and so she's not necessarily used to that role of being the second guard, and then Sab in her absence kind of thrive as the point guard, so it's not easy to kind of like find that new role, but I think having the responsibility in this game of the point guard duty, and she was gonna have more minutes, I think that she felt good about it, and I think the break also was beneficial for her, minus the injury that forces her to have wearing a mask. But I think she did a lot of conditioning. Let's not forget that she was out for almost a month for the personal reason that we know. And so I felt like she was great. She looked great physically. She was quick. And she mentioned spacing. And that's the thing, when you have players like Stewie or JJ, that could also, have point guards play like guards as well. But they stretch the floor because they're threats. At the 3-point line for bigs, you can play the pick and roll with them, pick and pop. So that kind of forced the centers of Dallas to kind of get out of the paint a little bit more than usual. And so, like you said, that causes them to foul a lot, whether it was Tui or Jonko Jones. But that also allowed, Slew with speed to get in the paint. And she had a couple of nice, layups, driving the basket, a couple of mid-range, because, the 3-point shot is not necessarily a strong, suit, but the mid-range is, though. And when she comes out of that pick and roll, she had a couple of mid-range, and that was great to see. And, she had a double-double with 11 assists. I can't remember the last time that Slew had more than 10 assists, which was almost like something she would do every single game, especially back in the days when she would play with the Sky. And then she had even 6 rebounds. And she said that, fast break or spacing starts with rebounding, which allows you to play faster. And she kind of thrived in that. And I felt like she had a really awesome game, and it was really good to see Sloot back to her old self.
Yeah, I was really proud of Courtney Vandersloot. I think with all that she's been through this year, this season, it was good for everyone that had a break. I think it was great for them, especially Sloot. Just you got time to kind of take a breath.
Yeah.
She had a lot, this season, and she took some time off with the passing of her mom, coming back to the team, having to kind of get back into it. And, there's never enough time, you know what I mean? And so I think this break, the Olympic break, also helped, just for everyone to sort of take a breath and get back to training. And that conditioning, you can see that it really helped her, and it helped everyone on the team who didn't, get to go to the Olympics. They look faster, they look stronger, they're able to really, did Olaf stay behind? Because he made them work.
So that is the thing that I got from the players that were not at the Olympics. I don't know what happened in the mini training camp, but it seemed like they worked really hard because
he made them work.
Thank
you, Olaf.
Yeah, thank you or no thank you, I don't know, but yeah, they definitely mentioned it was Vandersloot, Kennedy Burke, JJ. They mentioned how hard they worked during the sort of Olympic break, working on the conditioning. Sloot mentioned the fact that it wasn't necessarily they didn't necessarily have players that kind of gel in terms of position because they had a lot of similar players. But they worked a lot on conditioning, defense, and it shows. Kennedy Burke has been thriving since we've been back from the break. Sloot has been great. JJ,
she's continuing.
She continued like she never left off. So yeah, Olaf, and to the point where Kennedy Burke reached out to Sandy while she was in Paris to see if maybe the last day of that training camp they could have a little bonding trip, and suggested Six Flags. So that means that that this was it. We've worked a lot, but now we need to kind of decompress and just having some bonding time,
Yeah, and have a little fun.
And then, eventually passing out on one of those rides.
Leave Katie alone.
But
I would have passed out too.
yeah, definitely. Those rides look insane.
You'll never catch me on them rides, never.
But anyway, I felt like, that definitely also helped the rest of the team, because that was my biggest question. How's the team gonna sort of go back after being on such a high and on a big momentum? And it's almost everybody did their part, and now they're back together and happy to be together and get the job done, so.
And I'm really, just happy that everyone, because through this game, you could see that, they may not all play together, on the court. That's not usually how Sandy has it designed. But for the players, you had some lineups that were very interesting that you don't normally see.
Yeah.
And it might have started out a little rocky at first, just trying to get the rhythm. But once they got in rhythm, they did well. Sloot had some dimes to people. She she had a great pass to JJ, a couple of great passes to
Yeah,
JJ that were unexpected. And, just having her on the court as a general and her speed, that's the one thing Sloot still has. She still has her speed. The minute she sees space, she takes off.
yeah.
And she also was pretty just crafty also with, even when she took speed, knowing when to slow down, knowing when to go back, because they knew, sometimes she may pass the ball. And I think sometimes they expected her to. And so she'd pause and then take off again. And so it was just great to see her kind of give and go and just working with everyone on the court. And I think that just shows just the growth of this team, that even when a couple of players are out, that the other players will figure it out. Even if they come in and it's a little rocky at first, they're going to figure it out and they're going to get it together. They're going to work together on how to be successful on the floor. And so, and again, you got to give it up to the coaching staff. Whatever training camp they did for the Liberty was huge. And just to insert, Sabrina and Stewie back into the lineup, and Niara and Leo, you could tell that they're all like, it's all coming together. It's all gelling a lot better than maybe even what we saw in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, you're totally right, and I think now it's time to talk about Sandy Brondello, and we have to maybe do apologies, or sorry I wasn't familiar with your game, but we've been critical at times about Sandy, whether questioning whether she was the right leader of that team, but as we progress and as we kind of get to know her more about how she runs the team, and be able those past couple of weeks to see the team up close, that really gave me a different perspective. And that's why sometimes it's like, when you just like on your couch watching TV, or just at the game, obviously being at the game kind of allows you to see a little bit more, but really like be able to see her up close, talking to the media and the players, talking about her. I really see the leadership that she has on that team. And, we're going to have to talk about Coach of the Year, really.
Yeah.
I think low key, like nobody talks about her because, it's, the Liberty, they stacked the top of the league. Obviously, who wouldn't do a good job with that team? And I know, like, a lot of people have been talking more about, Stephanie White, who was the coach of the year last year with Connecticut, or Cheryl Reeves with Minnesota, who's doing a tremendous job with this team this year. But come on, Sandy Brondello has to be in a conversation, if not like the top candidate for coach of the year.
Well, I think there's a few people, not just Sandy, but definitely Sandy should be in the conversation. But the Liberty, I find that they're the top of the league, and it's just now that they're slowly being talked about in terms of playoff contention. I remember it was just last week when they talked about their ESPN talked about their predictions. The Liberty weren't even in the conversation, and they're at the top of the league. So I feel like there is some disrespect that, that isn't fair to the Liberty, because they've been at the top and they've so far have maintained it. And yeah, you have tough teams in Connecticut and Vegas, and Minnesota. But I don't think it's fair that the only teams everyone's talking about are Vegas, Minnesota, and even I think they even talked about Phoenix. And they're not even at the top of the league. So anything can happen in the playoffs, but the Liberty deserve a look. They deserve to be in the discussion, and Sandy deserves to be in the discussion of Coach of the Year. She got that team to the finals last year. That was unexpected in the first year of a team coming together and having to gel and try to make it work. You got to the finals. Yes, the Aces were a better team at that point, but now the Liberty are that team.
Yeah.
And I think the Liberty, this is their time and they can totally win it. They are that team and they're still building. So as they continue to build, they're only going to get better. And you have to credit Sandy Brondello's influence, her coaching, her encouragement, just believing in the players. Yeah, we can have our gripes. I think we tend to have our gripes with, the rookies and why not play Marquisha more, or now that, Sherrod is there, like, she got a couple minutes and she got her first bucket yesterday.
Congrats.
You know, in the WNBA. So that was great for her. But I think thinking about what the players said and looking back, you got to trust it. You got to trust the process. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like in the moment, we as fans see what happens in one game and we get so hyped, or we see a couple of games and we're like, oh, what is she doing? I don't think she should be coached. You know, blah, 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 blah. You know, we say all these things, but it is a trust the process. Like it takes time to develop. When you think about the teams that have won championships, the Aces won back-to-back championships, but their first couple of years were rough. Yep. So, you know, coming together, at least the first couple of years from the time they got Asia going through, it took a couple of years to form that team. And
they also had to change the coach at some point, because the beginning of that team was with Bill Lambier, and then they decided to switch and, you know, go in a different direction, and got Becky Hammond, and that kind of not completely turned things around, but she brought that extra spark and her vision of how she wanted that team to play. So, you know, the Liberty also went through a change of coach, and I think it probably took a little bit of time, you know, for people to really buy into Sandy's system, because when you think about it, like the way the Liberty play is a pretty attractive way of playing basketball, like constant ball movement. You know, everybody has to do many different things. They're not just set in one role. And sometimes you see other teams, like, they don't necessarily, you know, move the ball as much, or, you know, tend to like focus on just like one or two players. Like in the Liberty, everybody can score, everybody can contribute. But I think the criticism in that as well was that maybe at some point when the game is on the line, when it matters the most, like who's gonna take over, like who's gonna, you know, and maybe like people felt like, you know, the players are maybe a little too nice. But you see, like, you know, it was hard to overcome that loss in the final when you consider the fact that, you know, they had some of the key players missing in that game 4 for the Aces, and they still managed to beat the Liberty on their home court. You know, to recover from that, like a lot of teams maybe would have crumbled this year, but you saw how they came back, you know, much stronger. And, you know, they still kind of like had their moments at the beginning of the season, but they came back stronger, and the momentum has shifted with the Aces. You know, yes, it's the regular season, but those games matter though, you know?
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think we've always talked about, you know, the Liberty needing a dog on the court. They need somebody who can really rally that team. And you have your bigs, they're there, they're going to do their thing, but you need somebody that's really going to get. And I wasn't sure who they would have, because looking around the court, you're like, everyone's a great player.
Yeah.
But you don't have that dog, kind of like, i.e., like a Natasha Cloud, like somebody that's not going to back down, that's going to get her team going, that's going to play hard. Like, and it's not that the Liberty don't play hard, but somebody that just has a bit more grit to them. And I wasn't sure if they were going to get somebody or if someone would develop. And I have to throw this out there because her name is starting to come up in other, you know, rightfully so, her name's starting to come up in terms of most improved player. Her name is coming up in the conversation.
Are you talking about Sabrina?
Yeah, Sabrina Ionescu. And I feel like watching her play, she is developing into not the dog like Natasha Cloud, not that, but she is developing into that player that is going to get her team going. That player who is going to push the team. Like,
I mean, don't mention Sabrina. I mean,
that's the thing. Like, she has that spirit in her though. Like, you see it come out at times, and you see it just on the court. She is constantly moving, constantly encouraging her teammates, and when she needs, and now being aggressive. Like, you got, you know, Cheryl Swoops noticing Sabrina, like, we need to talk about her, and you're like, you should talk about her, because that floater game, attacking the basket, she's doing all those things, and she's really getting her team pumped up, and that gets your team going. So even though, you know, obviously things happen on the court, but in just her game and the improvement of her game, like, and she's still early in her career, so I just feel like she may very well be that person. She has that mamba mentality too. You should see it. Like,
we all have the Mamba mentality.
Everybody has the mamba.
Okay.
Kobe only met with a few. Let's be real.
And
Kobe,
she was one of
them.
One of the disciples.
Kobe only had a few.
But to go back on Sandy though, because to have players like Sabrina Ionescu with the Mamba mentality, or players like Jonquil Jones, Sabrina Stewart, who've been dominating and leaders in this league for many, many years, to have them buy into what you try to do with this team and the vision.
And even Benija.
You need to have a leadership and a mental strength and talent to get those talented players but with strong personalities to buy in. And so, that's why I think that she should be in the conversation for Coach of the Year, because when you hear from the players, and I think that's what is the most telling, when you hear from the players what they have to say about Sandy. And they didn't just say nice things because it was Sandy Brondello's birthday for that game. But, you could tell how, happy they were to have her as their coach and how, they want to fight for her. So let me just quote a few of the things that some of the players share about Sandy. So when Jonquil was asked, she said that, she demands a lot from the team, but she's also like someone that you can feel comfortable to talk to, and that she feels like her personality meshes well with the team. And I think both JJ and Stewie mentioned the fact that she was a former player also helps, because who better than a former player can understand what you're going through. Sometimes you can be a great coach and not having played basketball before at the highest level, but it does help tremendously. You see Stephanie Waugh, Becky Hammond, like they play in this league, so they know what it takes.
And they're highly respected by their team.
Yeah, they're highly respected. And then Stewie, she said that she's special because she's human. Like she's not afraid to show that human side, and she knows that sometimes she will get some of the criticism and not the players, but it's kind of like a way to protect them. And she said that in the fact that it was Women's Empowerment Night, that she was an empowering woman in the way she conducted herself and leads the team, and the fact that they really wanted to play for her and fight for her. And so that was very telling. And then to finish, I'm going to mention also Kennedy Burke, because we saw that the Liberty, they've been following her for a while, but it probably took a lot to convince her to leave her team in France, that ended up winning the title in France, and being the double MVP of the French league, to leave during just before the playoffs to join the Liberty. And it wasn't easy for Kennedy Burke at first. She kind of struggled to kind of find a role and everything, but she mentioned the fact that she appreciated the trust that Sandy had for her, and the conversation they had together, and making sure that she kind of keep the faith, and knowing that it will come. And now you see how she's blossoming slowly but surely into a role, and she's gonna be a key piece for that playoff run. Coming from the bench or helping out if someone is injured. So you have all those players that have really praised Sandy, and in the sense that she has helped them to be the best self.
And I think too, she knows her players and knows what they need. Like when you hear Kennedy speak, you hear her talk about just Sandy believing in her and encouraging her. And it's not that, I'm sure Sandy says that to all her players, but certain players need certain things. You know what I mean? Like certain players in the midst of a game may need encouragement. Some players may need some discipline. Like I think it was a few, maybe before the break, I forgot who they were playing, but Sabrina did something silly on the court.
Yeah.
And Sandy benched her.
Yeah.
And it got Sabrina mad.
Yeah.
But when she put her back in, Sabrina performed.
Yeah.
And so you realize there's certain players that need certain things, and I think Sandy has really figured that out for most, if not all, of her players. And yeah, you got to appreciate that your coach has to learn so much about you and knowing what you need in that moment, especially in the midst of a game.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to respond to being benched and then coming back to perform. Sabrina's a different individual. You know, Kennedy Burke is different. KT is different. Like, you could see just the relationship that Sandy has. Even in Tuesday night's game, I think Kayla Thornton threw up a shot that wasn't sure if it was going to go down. I think it was a 3. She made a 3. It bounced off. It bounced up off the rim, and then it went in, and then she looked at Sandy and winked. And Sandy got up and pointed at her. You could tell it was just a moment. Yeah. Like a quick moment. But you could tell, like, just coach and player, you could tell that she really cares about her players. And she has that kind of mom mentality a little bit in a way, too. Yeah. So I think and that's something you got to appreciate. And I'm sure that even for us as fans, we don't get to see all the intricacies of this team. And that's fine. Like, they got to work at it. They got to bring this product to the court. They got to talk about it. They can't put everything out there. You know, maybe one day down the line, years down the line, they'll talk about it and talk about Sandy and, you know. But I think, she should definitely be in conversation for Coach of the Year. And I think some other players should be in conversation, i.e. Sabrina, for most improved player of the year. We know MVP is probably locked up with Asia. We already know. People are not gonna... She might have it locked up. But even in conversation, I do think other people should be in the conversation too.
A conversation for all WNBA first team, to be honest. You know, because I think she was in the second team last year. So for me... You know, I want to aim higher for Sabrina because she was already great. So that kind of implies that, you know, she has made improvement, but she was already at a great level last year. So for me, that's why I feel like she should be in the top 3 of the MVP race. That's my taking, you know, take it as you wish, and be in the all WNBA first team. I think that would be pretty fair for what she has accomplished so far this season.
And I feel like she's only beginning. Yeah. You know, she's finally had a season where she didn't have major injury to come back from. And she could train hard and be fully prepared for the season. She didn't have to like nurse an injury and slowly make her way. She got to really and really work on the things that she wanted to work on and get better. And she's showing that.
All right. Well, that's it for this game. I think by the time that you listen to our episode, it will be the day of the second game between those two teams because, you know, surprise, surprise, the calendar is very strange. They've never played against each other this season. And then in the span of like 1 week, they play twice. So that would be another game that we will cover. I'm sure the game will be very different, you know, as we're accustomed to from the previous one. And then on Saturday, they will have the big matchup against Connecticut. So thank you so much, guys, for listening to our podcast. And as we always say, Felicia,
let's go Liberty!